Alright, my friends, here we have a lovely plane, the Concorde, the first and last ever supersonic passenger plane. And it was amazing. But there were a couple problems with it. One of them being the cost. Tickets were so expensive compared to regular aircraft at the time due to their fuel prices, as well as the luxury of speed and the limited availability of the planes and the seats on the planes. The Concorde was ahead of its time, meaning it had to include some less than ideal technology, such as the quote unquote droop snoot. This was where the entire front part of the airplane dipped down so that during takeoff, the Concorde pilots could see the runway to make sure they weren't falling off of it. So, obviously, some improvements were needed. This is where the companies of today come in. On the left top corner here, we have the Boom Supersonic prototype image of the Overture, which is a new supersonic passenger plane coming out to the US, hopefully in the near future. And on the right is NASA's new supersonic plane that they have been designing to reduce the effect of the sonic boom to those at ground level. Now, this is a little picture here we have about the Concorde and the Boom Overture, how they're comparatively. Down on the bottom right, we have flight times, which are which it shows you in the bold what they would be with our supersonic travel, and in the brackets there, what they would be with regular travel. Now, we also have the prices down at the bottom right corner here. The bolded price being what Boom has predicted its prices to be, while the very bottom there has what the Concorde prices would have been. In the middle here, we have the interior of the airplane, which is going to be seated to 65 to 88 passengers. And this means that there will not be many passengers on the aircraft. We see the difference in speeds, passengers, cruising altitude, although the cruising altitude is the same. Just a bunch of very cool stuff right here. Now, Boom Supersonic's main goal with the Overture is to fix some of the problems with the Concorde. Some of the problems with the Concorde were public opinion, due to some unfortunate crashes, some economy issues with the tickets being priced too high, according with increased fuel consumption and high fuel prices at the time. There was many problems, and Boom is working with many engineers and governments, etc., to try to fix some of these. Now, some of the concerns have been around the environment. This being that supersonic travel burns more fuel, meaning that we will have more greenhouse gas emissions. Part of how Boom is trying to mitigate this is by using some SAF fuels. SAF fuels are basically fuels that take waste that humans produce and then use them for aircraft fuel instead of using regular big oil. Boom Supersonic overall goal in terms of the environment is to become carbon neutral, which means that they destroy as much carbon through advanced carbon like catching and destruction processes that do cost quite a bit, but that's their overall goal, is to destroy as much carbon as they create into the environment. Now, another problem with that ties into the environment as well as the high cost of supersonic travel was the fuel consumption. Now, with increasing technologies today improving both fuel efficiency as well as engine efficiency by leaps and bounds, This has been a big improvement towards Concorde, which allows you to see a much lower price compared to what the Concorde would be. Now, another thing to note is that currently in most countries of the world, supersonic travel is banned over their land. The only place where it is not banned currently is over the sea. So, for going supersonic, the biggest travel routes would be overseas. New York to Paris, for example. Now, there's many things that Boom has done to try to work with governments on this. One of them being flying under supersonic levels while over land, and then opening the throttle, as they say, to go back up to their 1.77 Mach when they're over the seas. Now, this is a good way to do it for working with the government because they're not always the most cooperative. But of course, we would love to see them be able to fly supersonic above the land. And a big part of this is what NASA is doing. Now, NASA has this big project currently where they're trying to quiet the sonic boom, reduce the effect that it has on ground level. Now, how they're doing this is quite amazing. It's mainly changing the body structure of the airplane to try to redirect some of the shock waves up instead of down towards the ground. And while I'm very interested in the shaping of airplanes and how everything goes into them and all the effects they have, but that is a little advanced for the scope of this video. Now, this project is a joint project with Lockheed Martin, and this is one of their data points that have been shared to the public. Normally, the top and bottom will look roughly the same, but from their testing, they have found that the bigger shock waves, the more impactful ones, the darker ones on the screen, have been more up above the aircraft than down below. Now, of course, this is not perfected yet, and it will take probably a couple more years before they were able to do it, but they've been making great progress. Now, while Boom and NASA have been making great strides in solving some of the problems that the Concorde had and trying to bring back supersonic travel, they can't do it by themselves. Now, this is where the people come in. Woo. So, what we really need to bring back supersonic travel is everyone's support. If we have more support on it, the people working on it will be more motivated to do it than they already are. The government will see that there's actually a want for this, and everything will just go smoother. In terms of public opinion, I ran a survey earlier this year, and just kind of got some people's opinions on supersonic travel, and I just wanted to address some of the stuff here today. So some of these are just like identification questions. It was more just curious. This question intrigued me. About half and half of people knew of the Concorde. I mean, yeah, some of the people I were surveying were born after the Concorde had stopped flying, as well as the aware of current attempts to revitalize sonic air travel is as low as a quarter. Now, I understand that this technically does not apply to many of the people I surveyed lives right now, being mostly college students. But this is still an interesting statistic to me. Going furthermore into these statistics of our short answer questions that we have here, I just wanted to address some of the interesting things that I heard while having this survey. One of the big things that people were concerned about was the sonic boom of the aircraft, damaging buildings, hurting ears, all that jazz. So now, as we did say from NASA's research, they are currently working on that, as well as Boom Supersonic currently has been working with the FAA to be flying slower over land so that the booms do not reach the ground. as is shown in this diagram. In this diagram, depending on the altitude, it is actually shown that we can go around Mach 1 to 1.3 without the sound waves hitting the ground. Now this is wonderful. There are of course things to consider such as buildings, such as skyscrapers, for example, in Chicago, that would have to increase the cutoff altitude, and we wouldn't maybe be able to fly as fast over those. But for the most part, the sonic boom should not affect people on the ground, especially if we're going slower. Another big thing that I found in my surveys is that people were very concerned about what going at supersonic speeds would do to them. And I'm here to say it will do nothing. As shown on the flights from the Concorde, reported footage, as well as eyewitness accounts, people barely noticed the transition from under Mach 1 to over Mach 1. Now, this is because it's not much of an acceleration. Acceleration is what makes you feel like this guy here. His body is undergoing extra G-forces, he's being pushed back into his seat if he was sitting, stuff like that. All of that is caused by acceleration. Now, due to the wing shape of the boom overture, it is slightly less efficient at lower speeds. Now, because of this, there will be slightly higher takeoff and landing speeds, which means we will either need longer runways or we will need to accelerate faster. But no plane would be allowed to be in production if the acceleration for takeoff and landing would be something that would feel uncomfortable. This would be the same case for a plane like Boom Overture. Another concern about flying supersonic was just damage to your nervous system or just other parts of your body. Again, this would all be caused by a great magnitude of acceleration and not by the speed itself. Now, another concern I would imagine that people have would be all the crashes that have been happening lately in the US this year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Either we're just seeing it on the news more or something's happening. But if you don't believe me, here's some gosh darn statistics. Bam, 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 and bam. There you go. Planes are safe enough. I don't know. I'll let you decide. However, I just want everyone to realize that plane travel, despite the recent mishaps, is overall a very safe form of travel, and I don't believe you should be worried. I believe you should be excited. Just imagine, you could fly to Paris and back in a day. It'll take only 6 to 7 hours instead of 16. The possibilities with supersonic travel are so large, and it would help connect so many people so much more. I, for one, am excited, and I hope you are too. Thank you.